This is a quick overview of the sales process and how we are tracking it in Pipedrive. And in this video, we're going to look at an overview of the funnel and the deal flow. If you're in Pipedrive, you'll see a drop-down menu on the right-hand side. Make sure that this menu for this particular video is showing 1920 sales. So you might have several different funnels in here. The particular one that we're looking at here is 1920 Texas sales, and we'll create other 1920 funnels for other states, but the principles will be similar. In the Texas funnel, you have basically 5 stages. Renewal is unique to Texas, but this is where the renewal accounts will be placed for districts or schools that subscribed last year. Program candidate is a candidate for an Exploro subscription. In trial means they're technically in trial, and I'll discuss that. Vetted proposal sent means that we have sent a proposal that has been acknowledged and or reviewed by the appropriate district contact. And invoiced means we've technically invoiced the district, and meaning the PO has come in and we've sent the invoice, and that's what creates the opportunity to move a deal to this stage. With respect to renewals, we will create for every 18-19-1 deal, we're going to open up a deal in the renewal category such that we can track the progress of the renewals for the 1920 sales cycle. Once this renewal deal moves forward with a vetted proposal, it'll move directly to this stage. We don't anticipate that a renewal would travel through a program candidate or in trial, because that's not what renewals are about. It's simply getting them renewed. If, for example, they wanted to extend the deal and trial into other areas, there's a possibility that that would get rolled into this deal if the contact person was the same and the quote was the same. But commonly that'll be dealt with as a separate deal if they just want to renew and then they want to look at expansion. And we'll touch on that in a minute. And then from here, it would just move to invoiced. Once we receive a PO, Yoel creates an invoice. Depending on the account, either Yoel is going to send the invoice directly to the finance group at the district, or it'll be passed off to the sales representative to do that, depending on the communications. And that's really worked out within Pipedrive and within communication around the deal at the time that that's taking place. Incidentally, once a deal is invoiced, I take care of winning the deal, which happens when the finances actually show up in our bank account, and that's what triggers this deal to be won. With respect to new opportunities, those will commonly go into program candidate, and they'll sort of follow a slightly different flow from here, basically just moving this direction typically. So if there is a new opportunity, we need to create a deal. That is done by the sales representative, because you know what the deal is for and who you are talking to. I want to make a separate video on how to add a deal with the keys on how to not duplicate different contacts, and certainly how not to duplicate a deal itself. One of the downsides, or one of the issues that can get created, is a bunch of dupes, which makes tracking that much more complicated. So I'll make a separate short video on how to search for deals and how to search for contacts such that we don't create these dupes. But in the process of making any deal, we are trying to follow very specific naming conventions, such that when you're looking at a deal, you can get an idea of what you're looking at. And it also means that when others are searching, they can find the deals. Otherwise, if these deals start to follow various naming conventions, it makes things really complicated. So our naming conventions are district name. In Texas, it's followed by ISD or CISD, just because of the Texas conventions. But in Michigan or wherever, it would be the district name, followed by 1920 for this particular academic year that's coming up, followed by an abbreviation for the subject area. In this case, social studies is SS, or if it's ELAR, it would be ELAR deal. If it was ELA, it would be ELA deal. And if, for example, you were speaking with an admin who was interested in both, so for example, if your contact is a CNI superintendent of CNI, for example, or your contact is a principal at a campus level that is wanting to buy both, then you can just put it in this way. Note that this has been our convention in the past for a social studies deal, but we're going to switch this convention to be the naming for a situation where you have both English and social studies of interest, and you're providing a quote that contains both. Most likely, these are going to get separated because most likely you're going to be talking to one individual for social studies and one individual for language arts. And so those deals will track at slightly different paces. But if it's rolled into a single quote, you can put it together and link that particular admin for the deal. Note also that it's quite common that you have let's say a Big Sky IS deal, 1920 social studies deal in progress. This may only be one or two campuses out of a larger district, but we name it by the district so that we can keep our sanity when we're looking at the funnel. If all of these were school names, you would have no idea who you were talking to. And let's say that Big Sky ISD has 6 campuses and you've created a deal that contains within it 2 campuses, and we're selling to that, and there's a quote for those 2 campuses. But then a little bit later in the year, a third campus wants to get a quote. Then we create another deal called Big Sky ISD 1920 with the name of the school, whether it's a high school or a middle school, and everything else remains the same. So this is a campus level specific deal in this case, or a secondary deal, which is not uncommon. You'll see it in Pipedrive. If there's other variants that come up, I don't know, 2-3 campuses that want a second quote, we can figure that out. It might be social studies 2 deal, but we can handle that on a case-by-case basis. We haven't really seen that yet. Generally speaking, we just try to create all deals at the district level, and then within a deal you can actually hook up which campuses are relevant if you want to set it up that way. And that's the subject of a different video. Okay, so most often you're going to start out with someone who's a program candidate. This is the stage that the deal will be in as a district or a campus is getting set up to trial. So there'll be various back and forth communication that's taking place. Typically, you're going to refer your contact over to the Exploros subscription 30-day trial form. They're going to go ahead and fill out the social studies or the ELA form to trial the particular program that they're interested in. It's very important as a sales rep that once this form is filled out, it gets posted back to Pipedrive with a task to review it. And just note that Exploros Engineering has no visibility into who's on these campuses. So if, as a rep, you do not review this and we set it up, you may have key stakeholders within your account that don't have access because they did not put their information on this form. So these things can't happen magically. We need to know who is supposed to be set up as an admin, and this is your window into what the district requested. And a lot of times they're sloppy with this form, and then it's very hard to figure out after the fact. So this gets posted up to Pipedrive with a task to review it, and it's important to review it and then to get back to us via Pipedrive, close the task out, and say that it's been reviewed. That's a key thing. From there, we take it from an engineering side, and the Explorer subscription permissions are configured, and that's set in the platform itself, which turns particular users into admins and provides particular reporting to various users, and sets permissions for teachers such that they have the subscription version versus the free version. All of those things happen. Once this is all hooked up, this deal is moved to in trial, and that is done by Itamar from our engineering team. That is not something that's done by a sales rep, because this means technically in trial. This is not just wants a trial. Anyone who wants a trial is still a candidate. Once they're technically set up in as having the actual accesses, they're moved to in trial. And then from there, things continue. You might be still in trial, but we're all the way to the point where they have a vetted proposal and you've discussed it with the district or campus contact. Then the deal would move along. There's a note inside this deal that is actually stating when the trial ends, and that's a subject of the deal details, which I'll walk through when I show the video on how to create a deal. And from there, it moves on to invoiced and eventually to a one deal. So that's a quick tour of this funnel and how we intend to use it, and some naming conventions at a high level. And other videos go into some of the details of how to create a deal and those kinds of things.